You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We are continuing our international series today. We head to the Dominican Republic. Looking forward to learning more about the Lord's work there today. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for your support of The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Naumann, serving the Lord in the Dominican Republic. Dr. Naumann, thanks for being our guest on The Coffee Hour.
My pleasure.
So share with us, it's been a while since we've chatted. Share with us, please, the story of how the Lord led you to serve in the Dominican Republic.
Well, although I was born in America, I was ordained in England because at a very early age, I was interested in serving abroad. It's kind of a family tradition, it seems, almost subconsciously, that ordained pastors in the Naumann family would leave the place where they were born to serve on foreign soil. My great-grandfather was born in Dresden, Germany, and went to America. And my grandfather was born in America and went to Cuba. My father was born in Cuba, went to America. I was born in America, went to England.
That's amazing.
I feel like that would be a really neat map. Like, we need a visual for that, Dr. Naumann. Can you provide a visual for that?
Yeah, I should. Somebody
markers.
And it carries on with the next generation. All of my children have left, especially the ones in ministry, have left the nation where they were born. The two who are pastors were born in Scotland. One went to Sri Lanka and the other one is in New York. So, yeah, it's still carrying on with the next generation.
That is fantastic. How did you end up in the Dominican Republic then? You going to an even different?
Yes, I have to say I was recruited. Somebody, knew that I had a background in missions and I was pursued for this position. As my wife Cheryl as well, who is a deaconess, and has served for a long time, even in America, as the president of the Concordia Deaconess Conference that she founded back in the late 1970s. So she was very much pursued for this position, working with deaconesses, and being married to me, I was part of the package.
So tell us about the work that you get to do and that your wife gets to do in the Dominican Republic. A lot of really good stuff happening there.
Yes, this is kind of a golden age for publishing classic Lutheran materials in Spanish. And Cheryl is very much involved in a project to digitalize these translations into Spanish for clergy and lay people, Lutherans all over the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. This project helps pastors, particularly with limited financial resources, to have a substantial library at their disposal in a digital form.
Tell us more about the ways that you've been given to serve there. What do you get to do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'm sort of involved in the old style library books. I'm the director of the seminary library, and we dealing with thousands of hard copy books in English mostly and Spanish. And so that's part of my work. I teach at the seminary as well on their faculty as a theological professor. And also I'm the missionaries chaplain. I provide pastoral care to the missionaries around the region. And not just English speakers now. We've got missionaries who are in an alliance with us from other countries that speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of several different hats that you get to wear. Tell us more about the seminary, the students that are there. I know we've talked about it before, but it's been a little while. Tell us about the seminary and who the seminary serves.
Yes, the seminary has 9 residential students at the moment from 7 different countries. So that's amazing. We don't actually have any Dominicans. We've got uh, men from Bolivia and Venezuela and, other countries like that, Peru, Chile, but we don't have any Dominicans. But we do have also even more students who tune into our lectures by Zoom, and that's a larger body. I'm not very good with figures off the top of my head, and I should have anticipated that question, but it's got to be double digits anyway in other countries.
Wow.
What does theological education look like for these students?
It's very similar to the theological programs in other countries, particularly small seminaries like the one in England, Westfield House, where there's a tutorial system where sometimes a man will just have one professor that's dealing with him one-on-one, or St. Catherine's in Canada, where they have a small student body. So we're talking about small class sizes, very close supervision and mentoring. But the actual curriculum is very like Fort Wayne or St. Louis. Greek and Hebrew are used. There's systematics, there's history of doctrine, there's pastoral theology that I teach. I tend to teach courses in pastoral theology and worship leadership. We also have a vicarage, which is now at the end of their time of study. And that usually is more than 1 year. I know in America it's just 1 year. Here it may easily be 2 years.
Do many of the students end up going back to their home countries to serve, or what's the outlook for these students once they graduate from seminary and then go through their vicarage?
Yes, that's a good question. It varies. We have a number of Venezuelan students, but for a number of reasons, they don't really want to go back to Venezuela, and the church there couldn't support them. So we have a pastor or two in this country who are Venezuelan, and we even have a Venezuelan pastor in Spain, where it's more likely that he'd be able to be paid to be a pastor or get a job as a pastor than in Venezuela. Our men have, I suppose, like English-speaking seminaristas, a choice of countries in which they can serve these days. They could go back to their own country, but it's just as likely that they'll find a parish in some other country.
In addition to theological education and teaching at the seminary, are there other ways that you get to serve and serve in the Lord's work there in the Dominican Republic?
Well, I do end up sitting at a keyboard and playing a musical keyboard, like a digital piano, and playing for the church services. For example, this morning I played at the seminary, where I take turns with other musicians doing that. I preach at local churches in Spanish, which is not my native language by any means. And also we have some English services going on a monthly basis, and I would be taking part in those as well.
What have you enjoyed most about making this transition from your life in England, your life in the States, to now life in the Dominican and the culture there?
Yeah, that's a question. That's a good question. I like the exotic location. It's not easy, but I like learning a new language and dealing with people, and even learning a new liturgy, because the Lutheran service book is far different from, in many ways, musically, principally different from what we had in America and what I had in England. So, yeah, I suppose if you want to talk about what I enjoy, I just enjoy the exotic surroundings, the adventure, I suppose.
The adventure of serving somewhere tropical.
Yes.
We have more to learn about how the Lord has given the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Naumann to serve in the Dominican Republic, and also learning from him about how Deaconess Dr. Cheryl Naumann serving there as well. Hopefully we'll have the chance to talk with her in the near future as well. So we'll continue the conversation in just a moment right here on the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Today we're talking with Reverend Dr. Jonathan Naumann, serving the Lord in the Dominican Republic as part of our international series here on the Coffee Hour. Dr. Naumann, we've learned a little bit about how the Lord has given you to teach in the seminary in the Dominican Republic and other ways that you get to serve alongside your partners in the mission there with music and other ways. Share with us a little bit more about how the past year has been challenging. I know we've been talking with missionaries now for quite a while this year and learning about some of the challenges they face, particularly with the pandemic. How has that impacted how you've been given to serve?
Well, it made it necessary for me to become more familiar with media, with leading services in front of a camera. And so I did that. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see all of those many services that were done during the pandemic. The one thing that couldn't happen, which was quite traumatic for me, really, was not having Holy Communion services. And that went on for the longest period in my life, really, since I was confirmed to go that long without receiving Holy Communion. But that was one of those things. But God is gracious, and I was able to be kept alive spiritually despite that rather trying period. I'm happy to say that it's kind of over here in this country. I was noticing today at the parochial school how some children were wearing masks and others not. And you just wear masks in places of business like department, or I should say supermarkets and things like that, and in churches. But otherwise, lots of people not wearing masks and going about as though life were back to normal here anyway.
Mm-hmm. How was the life at the seminary affected in the last year, trying to do all of the teaching and the theological education with these students from different countries? How was that affected in the last year?
Well, we had just completed this beautiful building, particularly the third story, which contained the conference rooms and classrooms and faculty offices and kitchen and so forth. And then it was all closed for a year. Basically, like our regional office, nobody went in. It was completely dormant. And one time it was even robbed. So apparently thieves didn't mind the pandemic. But we did have to have lectures recorded from home. I have an office in my accommodation, missionary accommodation here, and And I even, when I was visiting America, I even did a course every day for students, because on Zoom, you can be anywhere, can't you?
Well, anywhere that you have decent internet, yes. I think
Yes.
many of us learned that in the last year.
Oh, yes.
How reliable is your connection? This is the challenge we all faced.
Well, mercifully, we've got a pretty reliable connection, as reliable as any of the infrastructure is down here. We lose power almost every day, but we have a backup battery, which keeps things like internet going. And we lose water. Every 2 weeks, we have to have drinking water delivered. Well, even bathing water has to be delivered by a truck, because the pipes, which are only 1 inch in diameter, are either broken or not receiving any water from the city. So the infrastructure is really hit and miss down here, but we get used to that.
What would you say were blessings that have come out of the challenges that we've faced in the last year? Have you seen blessings?
Well, the blessings out of the pandemic, or
Yes, yeah. Over the pandemic and the challenges we faced in the last year, have you seen ways that God has provided, or maybe something we've learned through these challenges?
Well, it's kind of hard to find an upside to a pandemic and all of that. I suppose it's focused the mind a bit, made you realize how precious face-to-face contact is, which, is now just coming back. So I would say that would be an upside, an appreciation for other people and being together.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a little bit of what Cheryl has been able to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about her work, especially with the deaconesses that are down in there in the DR?
Yes, she is organizing what are called mercy conferences in various countries. She has a budget. She's in communication with speakers and people who could host these mercy conferences. And so they've been happening virtually during the pandemic. But before that, they were in person, and hundreds of people throughout the region have taken part. And she's organized those. They are about a range of subjects, from personal outreach to disaster management. And because we do get those, everything from hurricanes to earthquakes. And well, I suppose the pandemic was a bit of a disaster in its own way, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Certainly.
So yes, she organizes those things, and she does work with deaconesses. There's a small little cohort of them on this island. Some American ones who are part of the Concordia Deaconess Conference, and also some Dominican ones who are not a member of that American conference, but organized in their own right, with their own sort of red uniforms, which are different from the blue uniforms the American deaconesses wear, and the work that they do here. I think she'd probably be better suited to describe that work than I, but it's work of mercy, it's work with children, it's arranging things like vacation Bible schools during summer holidays from school and things like that.
So we have just a couple of minutes left, but I always have to ask the fun question when we're talking about different cultures, and you've had the privilege of experiencing multiple cultures. You mentioned earlier you like being in this tropical location where the Lord has given you to serve. Other aspects of the culture, I always have to ask the food question. Have you discovered food that you like in the Dominican culture?
Yes, that's a good question. In America, you've got Kentucky Fried Chicken, but down here, everybody fries chicken, and it all gives Colonel Sanders a run for his money, I can tell you, because it's all very well done. They really know how to fry things here. And here we are in the coffee hour. I was going to mention that coffee is something that is actually like tobacco, one of the things that are produced in the Dominican Republic. So they have their own coffee, giving Starbucks a run for its money down here. So yeah, basic things like chicken and rice and various fruits. Today they served a potato salad, which is quite nice. Imagine an American warm potato salad with red chunks of beets in it, giving the whole thing kind of a pink appearance. And they call that a Russian potato salad here. But I don't know how Russian it is. But yeah, it's full of surprises. I'll tell you what, you asked me what's my favorite. In America, I would often have to ask, is it flame grilled or not? The difference between Whoppers and Big Macs. But down here, many, many things are cooked a la parrilla, which means on a flame grill, or asado style, or churrascaria style. And so there's no shortage of flame grilling. It goes on all over the place. So that is my favorite, personally.
I'm going to have to go get some flame grilled something once we're done here. Are there other aspects of the culture that are interesting or maybe quite different from living in America or in England?
Well, I'd say that there's a kind of relaxed atmosphere here that I enjoy, especially at my time of life. I'm 64 now, and people down here in the Caribbean are very relaxed. They, sometimes when Americans hear that the people here they earn only a few dollars a day, they think, they must be sad all the time. But in fact, they've learned to be happy on just a few dollars a day, which is quite an enviable quality when you think about it. It takes very little to make them happy, and I think we can learn lessons from them. They're quite a cheerful people, despite the fact that they have almost nothing. They don't take traffic laws very seriously, which you would think that would be very dangerous. But as far as I know, they just kind of flout people don't wear seatbelts. They'll pile 4 or 5 people on a motorcycle. They'll cram 9 people into a 5-seater car. It's just very chaotic on the roads, animals crossing and dogs everywhere, people on horses and mules and cows even on the roads. But it all makes for kind of a relaxed sort of, you've got to laugh and not take it too seriously atmosphere, which I've come to like, actually, as long as you don't drive at night, because then it can be pretty dangerous with bad roads and no lights. People riding motorcycles wearing black, and they're pretty dark themselves with no lights on. I just avoid it.
Dr. Naumann, how can we stay informed about the Lord's work in the Dominican Republic and keep up with what's going on with you and Deaconess Cheryl?
Yes, we've got a number of Facebook pages. Do you have to actually join Facebook to look at those pages? I don't know, but you can look at the LCMS.org pages. Just type in Dominican Republic or type in my name or my wife Cheryl Naumann's name, and all of our adventures in Latin America and the Caribbean will come up. So yeah, it's really quite easy these days to do that. There's video footage that can be seen as well as lots of pictures.
Our guest today, the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Naumann, serving the Lord in the Dominican Republic. Dr. Naumann, thank you for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Well, it's been delightful. And you're all welcome to visit us down here if you feel inclined.
You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.